The character of Alfred Pennyworth has traditionally been presented as the substitute father for Batman. He was the one that raised the young Bruce Wayne after his parents were murdered, and he took this responsibility very seriously. In fact, I can't think of a single adaptation of Batman where Alfred wasn't a father figure for Batman, at least until the new Batman cartoon Batman Caped Crusader came out, and we saw their Batman put up an emotional wall, refusing to treat Alfred, or Pennyworth as Batman called him, like a person. And there have been some pretty strong reactions to this interpretation of the characters online, with some fans practically foaming at the mouth, furious that Batman would be so disrespectful to our beloved Butler. One other thing that has been commented on is this Alfred's larger physique, which is a direct callback to the original golden age of comics Alfred, back when his name was Alfred Beagle. This Alfred was not part of Batman's inner circle. Beagle had become Bruce Wayne's butler after Batman began his crusade on crime. Beagle thought of himself as something of a detective and would spend his time trying to assist Batman in his cases, but more often than not got in the way. As Beagle was more of a comedy character, he was given a portly frame, and often wore a deerstalker hat to make him look even more absurd. Eventually, Batman sent Beagle away to a health resort, and when he returned, he resembled the Alfred we all know today. Slim, with a neat moustache, and no longer a joke. This change was done to make the comic book Alfred look more like actor William Austin, who played Alfred in the then popular movie serials. Alfred was reimagined as the Wayne family butler, who had worked for the family since before Bruce Wayne had been born. Alfred had been a stage actor before he was called to replace his late father in the employ of the Waynes. He was the one that picked up young Bruce Wayne after his parents had been murdered, and from that point on, Alfred was the only family he had. While he may not have been fully on board with Bruce Wayne's mission to become a costume crime fighter, he supported him anyway. And one thing I wanted to clarify is that when Alfred calls Batman Master Bruce, he isn't referring to him as his employer, as in master and servant. He's using the antiquated title for a young male, before he reaches adulthood. So, when he refers to Batman as Master Bruce, he isn't acknowledging him as his master, he's referring to him as a boy, indicating that he will always think of Batman as a kid under his care, no matter how big he gets, like any parent. Alfred is always presented as a compassionate fatherly figure that is there to help Batman, more often than not bandaging his wounds, but also offers advice whenever Batman is struggling emotionally. Be it the 1966 show where their Alfred covered for Bruce and Dick to help them evade suspicion, the Tim Burton movies where he waited on him hand and foot and offered advice, Beatas's warm-hearted fatherly figure that used to be a spy, or any of the more recent live-action versions that presented him as a valuable partner in their mission, often a former soldier, that could speak freely to Batman. This brings us to Caped Crusader's Alfred, or Pennyworth as Batman calls him. We don't really see very much of Pennyworth's background. We know that his family hails from the middle of England and that one of his ancestors had been a minor noble, hence how his blood could be used in the spell to exorcise the gentleman ghost. One of the things I liked about this plot point is that it really dismisses the notion of noble blood. Pennyworth is a butler by trade, a servant, probably one of the furthest things you could think of when thinking of the noble class. But he is part of it, and he's not less of a person because of it. Pennyworth spends much of the first season of Caped Crusader supporting Batman in his mission. He is one of Batman's most useful tools in his arsenal, because he is someone that assists with his investigations, and unlike Alfred Beagle, he's actually good at it. Caped Crusader's Batman starts out as cold and detached, as I discussed in my earlier video about this version of the character. Go check that out if you haven't seen it yet. I have linked to it in the info button in the top right corner, as well as this video's description. But some viewers reacted very negatively to the way he speaks to Alfred. Batman does not refer to him by his first name. He is Pennyworth, a member of staff. The only member of staff at Wayne Manor, in fact. But Alfred isn't at all bothered by this. I guess he has had decades to get used to it, and despite the fact that Batman clearly doesn't want to open up emotionally, Alfred is always pushing him to grow. When taking Batman to the Iceberg Lounge, Alfred reminds him to make sure he has fun, like a parent dropping their child off at a party. And after Bruce Wayne punches out a journalist that made a comment about how foolish his mother had been for wearing pearls in the East End of Gotham at night, Alfred takes delight in the prospect of Batman being forced to attend therapy. He sees this as an opportunity for Batman to finally start to break down the barriers he's put in place since his parents were murdered. Obviously, witnessing their violent deaths traumatized young Bruce, and his response to that trauma was to block everybody out and never express his feelings again, to prevent himself from feeling any pain. It also means he doesn't feel any joy. I adored the flashback scene to that first night after his parents died, where a weeping Bruce suddenly stops and then goes to wake Alfred to tell him that he has decided he's going to punish all criminals and that Alfred is going to help him. The cold resolve in his eyes as he stares at Alfred, never once breaking eye contact, is chilling. Alfred clearly cares about Batman, otherwise he would have left long ago. And he supports him in his crusade because he doesn't want him to die, he wants him to be happier. And it seems that beating up criminals in a cape and a cowl is how he deals with his pain. When Batman's mandated therapy sessions end, Alfred hopes that Batman will take the opportunity to continue talking to Dr. Quinzel, to finally help him overcome his grief. But Batman shuts down all talk on the subject, leaving Alfred looking dejected. Alfred has no way of knowing this, but Batman was right not to continue seeing Dr. Quinzel, as she was conducting her own crusade against the lawful but awful elites of Gotham City. She does state that she doesn't think that Bruce Wayne is a risk to himself or others, but she believes that the emotional barriers he has put up are problematic. For all we know, Bruce was one session away from being shackled and locked in Harley Quinn's playpen while dressed as his Jungian archetype. The rebel? The hero? Maybe the shadow? I think that all of them fit to a certain degree. Anyway, the only other person in Bruce's close personal circle is his lawyer and possibly financial advisor, Lucius Fox. He is noteworthy because he calls Alfred by his first name and clearly remembers personal details about him. The two joke about a story involving one of Alfred's relatives thinking they'd seen a ghost out on the moors. Lucius scolds Bruce for what he views as Bruce being a snob, treating Alfred like the help rather than a valued member of his team. Lucius notes that his parents raised him to treat their employees like people and that Bruce should do the same. When Alfred joins Batman in conducting a spell to deal with the Gentleman Ghost, Alfred blocks the ghost from possessing Batman, and in the process is taken over. While inside of Alfred, the ghost reveals that Alfred is trying his absolute hardest to keep a secret from the ghost, and it's not Batman's identity. It's something he doesn't want Batman to know. At the time the show aired, Alfred's secret hadn't been decided by the writers, according to Bruce Timm. One thing we can be certain of is that Alfred is not Bruce's real father, nothing like that. Bruce Timm already shot that idea down, thank goodness. Personally, I like the idea that the secret is something really mundane that Batman wouldn't care about. Perhaps Alfred saw the man who killed the Waynes going into that alley and blames himself for not stopping him, even though there's no possible way he could have known what was going to happen. And I wonder if over the years Alfred has been dealing with his negative feelings by overeating. When we see him in the flashback, he's still quite broad, but definitely less portly. It's an idea that doesn't get talked about very much in animation, but some people do eat through their negative feelings, and it can be a response to trauma. Alfred clearly feels incredibly guilty. It's one of the first things that the ghost noticed when he took possession of his body, and it motivates everything he does. I also like the idea of Alfred feeling guilty over something he had nothing to do with, that the guilt ate him up inside, hence why he devotes himself to Batman's mission, almost as an act of penance for something that he could never make up for. When Batman expels the ghost from Alfred, he scolds him for risking his life. When faced with the possibility of losing Alfred, Batman becomes uncharacteristically emotional, and this actually seems to bring a smile to Alfred's face. Finally, he feels something. This is the point that Batman realizes that he does care about Alfred, that he's not just a tool in his arsenal to aid him in his crusade. If he were just a tool, then Batman should have been pleased that Pennyworth prevented the ghost from possessing him, but his anguish speaks volumes. This doesn't change much for the two, but at least Alfred can see that Batman is making progress, in his own way. Later, when Batman accidentally pushes Harvey Dent over the edge by making him go out in public before he was ready, Alfred firmly tells Batman that he made a mistake and that he is to blame for Dent's subsequent violent outbursts. Batman already knows this, but he doesn't want to hear it and shouts at Alfred before hanging up the phone. Alfred is one of the very few people that can speak the truth to Batman, and he will listen, even if he doesn't seem to like it. After Dent is murdered by Detective Flass, Batman sits ruminating in his cave, pondering the night's events and how he saw something of himself in Dent. He too sought to punish the corrupt criminals of Gotham City that had robbed him of his future. It's just that his crusade was murderous. Alfred, meanwhile, tells Batman that, yes, there were some similarities, but he isn't like Dent. He has grown and made progress through his crusade. He may have started out by wanting to punish criminals, but it has become more about saving people and making a difference to their lives. He is at no risk of becoming like Dent. At this point, the moment that everyone had been waiting for happens. Batman refers to him as Alfred, indicating a further reduction in his emotional barrier, and Alfred looks on proudly as Batman drives off into the night. I know a lot of people hated the fact that Batman had been so cold, especially towards Alfred, but without that coldness, it would have made the final moments of the season significantly less impactful. Whether that means that the Alfred of Caped Crusader of Season 2 will become more of a father figure remains to be seen. I'm very interested in learning what Alfred's secret could be, if it even comes up again. Batman didn't seem that concerned by it, indicating that he completely trusts Alfred. Hopefully we won't have to wait too long until we find out more. Okay, that's it for this video essay. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all the usual YouTube stuff. If you'd like to hear more about Batman Caped Crusader, why not check out our podcast Totally Shui Flipside, where my wife and I have gone through all 10 episodes. This is a spoiler-filled conversation about each episode in sequential order, so only check this out if you've watched the show or if you have no intentions of ever watching it yourself. I offer channel memberships for $1.99 a month, which will grant you early access to my video essays, and some supplementary perks like custom emojis, priority responses to your comments, members-only videos, and community posts. And special thanks to my current channel members, who are all listed on the screen right now. Next time I'm going to do a little speculation about another villain that appears right at the end of the last episode of Caped Crusader Season 1. And I think enough time has passed for me to discuss him without fear of spoiling it for people. We're going to talk about who Caped Crusader's Joker might be, and the comics that I think inspired their version of the character. It's going to be pure speculation, but I promise to back my ideas up and explain why I think what I think. Hope to see you then.